What is the one thing that no empire, no institution, no person, not even the weight of the entire world, can take from you? It is the sovereignty of your own mind. Everything else can be stripped away. Your wealth, your status, your reputation, your possessions, even the people you thought you could never lose. But the true battlefield of power lies in silence, within the unseen walls of your own thoughts. And here is the truth. Nobody and nothing will ever rule your mind unless you allow it. Imagine this clearly. When you are judged, mocked, or disrespected, it is not their words that enslave you, but your belief in them. When you are pressured by society to bend, conform, and follow, it is not their commands that bind you, but your silent submission. The greatest chains are not around your wrists or feet. They are the invisible ones around your thoughts. A camp, you're the invisible ones around your thought. And yet, the key has always been in your hands. If you can master this one truth, that your mind is yours alone, you will walk through life untouchable, unbreakable, and profoundly free. The world has always been structured around the desire to control, to dominate, and to influence the way people think. From the earliest civilizations, rulers understood that true power was not simply in armies or weapons, but in the ability to shape the minds of their people. Conquerors who could instill fear in their subjects were more effective than those who relied only on physical force. The greatest chains were invisible, not made of iron but made of belief, obedience, and surrender. Even today, long after empires have fallen, the same truth remains alive. Control is no longer enforced by swords but through narratives, through constant messages that shape how you see yourself, what you should want, and how you should live. The systems you move through every day are designed not just to guide but to mold you, to make you forget that you are capable of choosing your own path. And yet, the most overlooked truth is that this control can only succeed if you allow it to settle into your thoughts. If your mind refuses to yield, no external force, however powerful, can ever truly enslave you. But it is not easy to see through these illusions. Most people do not recognize that they are walking through a landscape built to capture their attention and direct their desires. The world praises independence while quietly demanding conformity. It rewards obedience disguised as ambition. Society tells you what is acceptable, what is admirable, what is worthy of respect, and without noticing you begin to measure your worth by standards that were never your own. When you feel the sting of rejection or disapproval, you are reminded of how quickly others can influence your state of mind. A single word, a dismissive look, a comparison that belittles you. All of it seeps into your consciousness until you start questioning your own value. And the deeper you internalize these voices, the less you belong to yourself. This is how people lose their sovereignty, not through force, but through slow surrender, giving away their inner authority piece by piece, without ever realizing that they had the power to resist. History has shown countless examples of how thought is manipulated to gain power. Machiavelli centuries ago observed that it is safer for rulers to be feared than loved, because fear binds people more tightly than affection. Fear takes root in the imagination, it alters the way people act, and it paralyzes them from within. Leaders who understood this weaponized it, and today the methods are not so different. The fear of missing out, the fear of irrelevance, the fear of being unloved or unnoticed. These are the modern chains that weigh on minds. Media, culture, and institutions echo with messages designed to keep you restless, craving, and unsure of yourself. Every advertisement is a whisper, telling you that you are not enough until you buy more, achieve more, or become more. Every social platform is engineered to feed your need for validation. What once was the command of kings is now the command of algorithms, yet the effect is the same: to shape what you believe about yourself so that your actions are predictable, controllable, and aligned with the desires of others instead of your own. And yet the mind is not as weak as these forces would have you believe. Control can only work if you accept it, if you surrender the throne of your inner life. But most people never pause to ask who is truly ruling them. Is it their own reason, their own convictions, their own carefully chosen values? Or is it the invisible chorus of expectations, fears, and judgments that have been handed to them since birth? The uncomfortable truth is that most of what people call their beliefs are borrowed. They carry opinions given to them by their parents, their teachers, their peers, and their culture without ever questioning where those thoughts originated. This silent inheritance becomes the architecture of their identity, and it is precisely this unconscious obedience that makes control so effective. When you live unexamined, you are no longer steering your mind, you are being steered. The conflict, then, is not only with external powers, but with yourself. There is a part of you that craves approval, that wants to belong, that fears the consequences of disobedience. This part is vulnerable, easily persuaded, and willing to trade freedom for the illusion of safety. And then there is the deeper part, the one that feels suffocated every time you compromise your truth, the one that whispers in moments of silence that you are more than what others see. These two forces are constantly at war within you. To allow one to dominate is to hand over your mind to forces outside your control. To listen to the other is to step into solitude, where approval and disapproval lose their grip. But solitude is uncomfortable, and that is why so many retreat from it. It is easier to submit to the current, to let society tell you what success looks like, even if it quietly eats away at your spirit. What makes this conflict so dangerous is that it is disguised as normal. Nobody announces that they are trying to rule your mind. Instead, it is woven into your daily routine so seamlessly that you mistake it for reality. When you wake up and immediately scroll through a screen, you are already being fed images and messages designed to influence you. When you compare your life to someone else's highlight reel, you are already participating in a silent form of control. When you silence your opinions to avoid confrontation, you are already yielding your mind to someone else's expectations. The danger lies in how ordinary these moments feel. They do not look like surrender, but each small concession accumulates until you no longer recognize where your thoughts end and where the world's commands begin. And so the conflict continues. Not in grand battles, but in quiet decisions made every day. It is in the choice to believe your doubts or question them. It is in the decision to chase external validation or to define your own worth. It is in the discipline to guard your thoughts when everything around you is designed to invade them. Nobody can put chains around your mind unless you cooperate with them. Nobody can truly dominate your inner world unless you hand over the keys. And that is the most difficult truth for many to accept. Control persists not because it is forced upon you, but because you quietly permit it. The war for your freedom has always been within, and the outcome depends entirely on which voice you choose to follow. The human experience is full of moments when we come face to face with the quiet realization that our sense of worth has been placed in the hands of others. Think of the first time you were laughed at for a mistake, or when you were dismissed as if your voice carried no weight. In that moment, the sting you felt was not just about what they said or did. It was about the way you allowed their judgment to define you. We are conditioned from childhood to seek approval, a teacher's praise, a parent's recognition, the admiration of peers. Slowly, this conditioning becomes a silent law that governs us. Every choice, every action, every thought begins to orbit around how it will be received by others. And yet, deep inside, there is always a restlessness, a sense that we are betraying ourselves each time we bend our authenticity to fit into someone else's expectation. This restlessness is not weakness. It is the soul's way of reminding you that your worth is not theirs to measure, and that your mind is not meant to live under the shadows of other people's opinions. We all carry scars of comparison. In classrooms, workplaces, and social spaces, we are subtly ranked, measured, and judged against one another. The brightest child is told they are exceptional, while the quiet one is often overlooked. The ambitious worker is celebrated, while the one who seeks peace is seen as lacking drive. These judgments are not always spoken, but they are felt, and they leave invisible marks. Many people spend their lives chasing an image that was never truly theirs to begin with. They work jobs they hate, buy things they do not need, and pursue dreams that do not belong to them, all because they fear being seen as less. But the tragedy of comparison is this. It blinds you to your own uniqueness. It convinces you that life is a competition, that your existence only has value if you measure up to someone else's definition of success. And when you believe this, you quietly hand over your mind, allowing others to set the terms of your happiness. Yet there are moments of awakening hidden in the simplest experiences. It might be the day you see someone with wealth and power, yet notice the emptiness in their eyes. Or the moment you realize that the person everyone admires for their beauty is still drowning in insecurity. These glimpses break the illusion. They reveal that the people you envied are not as untouchable as you thought. that they too are haunted by doubts and fears. When you see this clearly, something shifts inside you. You begin to understand that no amount of approval can ever silence the voice within, and no amount of rejection can diminish the truth of who you are. These moments may come unexpectedly, but they carry the seeds of transformation. They remind you that you do not need to live as a reflection of someone else's desires. The human experience becomes richer the moment you realize that authenticity, not acceptance, is the true path to peace. Still, the pull of conformity is powerful, and breaking free from it often feels like standing against the tide. Consider how often you silence yourself to avoid judgment. You have opinions but swallow them because you fear conflict. You have dreams but hide them because you fear ridicule. You shape your personality to fit the comfort of others, and in doing so, you betray the most sacred part of yourself. And yet, there comes a point when the pain of hiding becomes heavier than the fear of being seen. It is in this breaking point that people often rediscover their strength. Sometimes it happens in heartbreak, sometimes in failure, sometimes in loneliness, but always in silence. You realize that no one else is responsible for granting you permission to exist as yourself. This realization is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet and steady, like a voice whispering from within. Enough. No more living by their rules. No more surrendering your mind. The journey of self-realization often begins with scars. Pain has a way of stripping away illusions. When you are abandoned, you learn who truly values you. When you fail, you discover the shallow nature of false admiration. When you are mocked, you begin to see how fragile the opinions of others really are. These moments hurt, but they are teachers. They carve into you a deeper awareness of what matters and what does not. Each scar carries a story, and each story contains a truth. You survived without their approval, and you are still standing. The strength that grows from these experiences cannot be given to you by anyone else. It comes only from living through the fire and realizing that your mind remained your own. And once you see that, the chains begin to fall away. There is also a profound beauty in solitude, though most people fear it. To be alone is often mistaken for being unloved, unwanted, or insignificant. But solitude is where the mind breathes freely. In the absence of noise, you hear yourself clearly. In the absence of distraction, you begin to separate your own voice from the voices of the world. It is in solitude that you can finally ask, what do I truly believe? What do I truly want? Who am I when nobody is watching? The answers may not come quickly, but they come honestly, and in them lies the foundation of freedom. To walk comfortably in solitude is to reclaim your mind from the grasp of others. It is to say, even if the world rejects me, I remain whole. Even if no one understands me, I remain true. And in that truth, you discover that nothing outside of you can rule your inner world. The human experience, then, is not about escaping judgment or avoiding pain. It is about learning to live untouched by them. You will still face criticism. You will still encounter rejection. You will still feel the sting of being misunderstood. But these experiences no longer have the power to define you once you understand that they exist outside of you, not within you. The storm may rage around you, but the center of your mind remains calm, steady, unshaken. This is the point where life begins to transform. You no longer chase approval because you know it is fleeting. You no longer fear rejection because you see it as redirection. You no longer live as a prisoner of perception because you have chosen to guard the sovereignty of your thoughts, and in doing so you reclaim what was always yours. The freedom to live as yourself, untouched, unruled, and profoundly alive. The awakening begins quietly, often in the places where life has left you broken. You sit with your scars, your doubts, and your disappointments, and for the first time you stop running from them. Instead of seeing them as proof of weakness, you start to recognize them as evidence of survival. Every scar is a doorway back to a moment when you could have surrendered, but chose to endure. Every wound that healed left behind not just pain, but wisdom, and in that wisdom, a new clarity begins to form. The realization that the power to define your life has always rested within you. The world may have tried to bury you beneath shame, rejection, and fear, but none of it destroyed the essence of your being. That realization is the spark of awakening, a light that flickers within the darkness and reminds you that your mind, your soul, and your truth were never theirs to take. Awakening is not loud or dramatic, it is subtle, like the first light of dawn breaking through the horizon. You begin to notice small shifts inside yourself. The opinions that once weighed heavily on your heart now pass through you like shadows. The insults that once pierced your spirit now sound hollow, stripped of their power. You catch yourself standing taller, breathing deeper, and seeing the world with new eyes. It is not that the external forces have disappeared. They still exist, still trying to command your thoughts. But your relationship with them has changed. You no longer react with desperation or fear. Instead, you respond with silence, with composure, with the calm authority of someone who has reclaimed their inner throne. This change is invisible to others, but to you, it feels like a revolution. At the center of awakening is solitude. The world often portrays solitude as emptiness, but in truth, it is fullness. The fullness of being with yourself without distraction. In solitude, the noise of others fades, and you begin to hear the quiet voice within, the one that has always been there but was drowned out by chaos. That voice does not beg for approval, does not fear rejection, and does not measure your worth by comparison. It simply speaks truth. In solitude, you learn that peace does not come from the outside, but from alignment with this inner voice. The stillness becomes a mirror, reflecting back the strength you have always carried. You see that you do not need to chase validation when you can rest in self-acceptance. You realize that solitude is not loneliness. It is freedom. It is clarity. It is the birthplace of true power. Imagery of light often describes awakening, and it is fitting because it feels like light entering the cracks of your being. For years, you may have believed that your flaws made you unworthy, that your failures defined you, that your pain made you broken. But awakening shows you another truth. The cracks are not weaknesses, they are openings. They allow the light of growth, understanding, and strength to enter. What once felt like shame now becomes a mark of resilience. What once felt like rejection now becomes a redirection toward authenticity. Awakening transforms the meaning of your scars. Instead of reminders of defeat, they become proof of victory. The world may still see your wounds as signs of fragility, but you know better. You know that they are the very places where your strength was forged. This awakening does not make life easier, it makes you stronger. You will still face storms, betrayals, and losses, but your perspective changes. The storm no longer terrifies you because you know you carry calm within. Betrayal no longer shatters you because you understand that your worth was never tied to someone else's loyalty. Loss no longer defines you because you see that what remains, your mind, your spirit, your inner light, is untouchable. Awakening gives you resilience, not by removing pain, but by transforming your relationship with it. You no longer ask, why me? Instead, you ask, what will this teach me? How will this shape me? How can this awaken me further? Each challenge becomes less of a chain and more of a chisel, carving you into the person you were meant to become. There is also an undeniable beauty in silence during awakening. When you stop explaining yourself, stop defending yourself, stop trying to prove your worth, a profound shift takes place. Silence becomes your strength, because it is no longer about convincing others, it is about knowing yourself. In silence, you realize you do not need to participate in every battle or respond to every attack. You understand that the loudest power is often the quietest presence. Awakening teaches you that silence is not weakness, it is mastery. It is the ability to conserve your energy for what truly matters, to walk away without resentment, to choose peace over chaos. Silence is the declaration that you are no longer ruled by the noise of the world. Finally, awakening is the realization that your self-worth is not something fragile that can be taken or granted. It is unshakable because it comes from within. No title, no possession, no person can add or subtract from it. You carry an invisible crown, and though the world may never acknowledge it, you know it is there. This knowledge gives you a quiet confidence, a steady assurance that you are whole as you are. The awakening is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering who you have always been, before the world tried to convince you otherwise. It is the moment you stop searching outward for freedom and realize it has always lived inside your mind. And once you awaken to this truth, nothing and no one can ever rule you again. The journey of the mind is not about erasing the world around you, but about mastering how you respond to it. You cannot stop people from speaking, from judging, from trying to define who you are. You cannot stop society from creating its rules and expectations, or the constant noise that demands you conform. But you can decide in every moment how much of your inner space you give away. That choice is the essence of freedom. When you stop handing over your thoughts to the opinions of others, you realize that the power they once had was only borrowed from you. It was never truly theirs. This realization is not just an idea. It is liberation. It is the moment you rise above the pull of validation and rejection, knowing that neither can touch the core of who you are. True empowerment is not about controlling the world. It is about mastering yourself. Many people spend their lives trying to change external circumstances, believing that peace lies in rearranging the outside. But the outside will always shift, always bring new challenges, always test your patience. The inner world, however, is where the real revolution happens. When you build strength there, nothing outside of you can overpower it. This is not passivity. It is the deepest form of power. It is the strength of a person who no longer needs to prove, who no longer needs to beg, who no longer needs to bend. Such strength is silent, but it is unshakable, and it radiates from within like light that cannot be dimmed. To live with this understanding is to live untouchable. Imagine walking into a room where once you felt insecure, but now you stand grounded, not because anyone has changed, but because you are no longer swayed by their perception. Imagine facing criticism and hearing it without absorbing it, because you know who you are. Imagine losing what once defined you, status, wealth, attention, and discovering that your identity was never tied to any of it. This is not arrogance, it is clarity. It is the awareness that your worth is constant, regardless of how the world shifts around you. And when you live from this place, you move differently. You choose differently. You breathe differently. You are no longer ruled by life, you are living it on your own terms. The revolution of the mind is quiet, but it changes everything. It does not announce itself with noise or demand recognition. Instead, it unfolds within you as a new way of being. You notice it in the stillness of your reactions, in the calmness of your decisions, in the depth of your presence. The world may still try to pull you into chaos, but you carry silence like armor. The revolution is not in fighting others for control. It is in no longer needing to be controlled at all. The chains of doubt, fear, and external dependence break, and in their place you find freedom that no one can touch. That is the revolution worth living for. The one no empire, no authority, no person can ever take away. And so, the conclusion is simple but powerful. Nobody and nothing will ever rule your mind unless you hand over the keys. The choice is yours, always. This choice is not made once. It is made every day, in every interaction, in every silent decision about what you believe and what you reject. It is made when you pause before reacting, when you choose not to be defined by rejection, when you decide to trust yourself above the noise. These choices build upon each other until they form an unshakable truth. Your mind belongs only to you, and in that ownership, you discover the rarest kind of strength, the kind that cannot be taken, only lived. So let this be your call to action, though it is not loud, not desperate, not external. It is a call that rises within you in the quiet moments when you face yourself. Guard your mind, protect your silence, honor your truth. Do not trade your sovereignty for acceptance. Do not surrender your freedom for comfort. Live in such a way that your mind remains your own, no matter what the world demands of you. The real revolution has never been about crowns or armies. It has always been about awakening. And when you awaken, when you reclaim the throne of your mind, you discover that you were free all along.